Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and thanks a lot for swinging by the channel, checking it out, much appreciated. And guys, today we're gonna have a long overdue discussion on the groups of anglers out there that are responsible for keeping and eating most of the bass, and even some of the anglers out there responsible for killing a lot of the bass out there. This is a video I've been wanting to do for quite a while. I've touched on it a little bit in the past, but what I've done specifically is I've been thinking about this a lot the last 6 months because I've noticed an uptick myself in watching people fillet bass out. And I've surveyed sort of like 8 or 10 of my buddies that sort of live across the country in different parts, tournament anglers and some guides. And I got a feedback of the people that they are seeing that on a regular basis to keep and fillet the bass out. So we put together a little list here of sort of the mutual consensus we've came up with. So we're going to get into that and have a discussion on it. Also, guys, for get started, a big thank you to everybody out there that has hit that subscribe button the last couple of weeks on the channel. Got some good growth here recently. And also a big thank you to everybody that continues to use my tackle warehouse links, solar bat links I put in the description of the videos to purchase your fishing tackle. That's really helping out and giving back to the channel. So much appreciated. Okay, guys, one of the things I want to say about this is I think one of the issues in fishing that gets swept under the rug that needs to come out from underneath the rug is the number of people out there that don't practice catch and release. Now, here's the reason why I want to have this conversation, because this is a sensitive topic, and there's going to be people out there. It's like, Randy, you're not going to tell me what to do. If I want to keep some bass to eat, I'm going to do it. I get it. I've heard that talk, and we're going to talk about this before. But guys, we are in a different place in time now. This isn't 1970. This is 2023. There are more and more bass anglers out there than ever before. There are more and more bass anglers out there that are more adept at catching fish than ever before. And the pressure on our fisheries are at an all-time high. So we can't operate under the same paradigm that we used to 25 or 30 or 40 years ago in terms of seeing bass as this resource to be consumed if we want to maintain the integrity of our fisheries. Now, before I get into this list, I want to say one thing. I do not have a lot of confidence in the state fisheries managers and conservation departments. I have spent a lot of time talking to these people. I've seen how they operate. And from my viewpoint and my perspective, they see bass as basically a food source for people to buy a license and catch their limit and eat. They don't understand the bigger picture behind it of what the pressure on bass fishing and the technology that has accelerated in bass fishing is doing to this sustainability. I think they're in denial of reality with that. I think the problem we have with a lot of our state fisheries managers and stuff like that is they're understaffed, they're underfunded. We don't have enough conservation officers out there. I think a lot of them are unqualified. I think there's a lot of politics involved with it within the agencies. Now, I'm not saying that's across the board because there's some good people that I've met and talked to. But my observation and the observation of a lot of my buddies across the country is I just simply lack confidence in their ability to do the right thing, or that they know what the right thing to do is in terms of these fishery sustainabilities. So anyway, we'll get into that. I'll talk about that a little bit more in here. I will say one thing more about before I start on this list. There is this myth out there, and this is a myth, that if we don't harvest the bass, somehow they're going to get overpopulated and stunted. Guys, that is the biggest bunch of crap in the world out there. Bass have survived fine on this entire planet for hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of years without man coming in there and thinking they have to manage it. The natural predation within any body of water in terms of predatory birds, otters, other predatory fish, natural cycles, that is what balances a fishery. As long as you have a fishery that has sustainable habitat at a forage base out there, the cycle maintains itself. I have seen that over and over and over on the fisheries that I've been on that have had zero fishing pressure, private bodies of water that have no fishing pressure at all. And the fishing is exemplary. So when you hear somebody say, we got to manage these fish out there, they're going to get stunted, that is a myth. I'm telling you right now, there's other factors more important than that. So anyway, guys, the list that we put together of the groups of anglers that myself and other people have seen that tend to keep most of the bass, here's what they are. The first group is it's the group out there that feel they have this right, or it's like, excuse me, they feel like they have a right, or they are entitled, or they have a culture of just keeping fish. And a lot of times these people out there, they are non-tournament anglers, so they don't see fish in that same way. Some of them are tournament anglers. And then they come from this perspective. It's like, okay, if I'm going to go out and spend this money on a fishing license, and I got to put gas in my boat, and I've got to buy a boat, and I've got to make a boat payment, I'm not going to come home with nothing. I'm going to bring some fish home to eat. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people have that perception that if they spend the time and money, that they're going to show something for it. And again, as that group with that viewpoint multiplies every year, and that group also gets more skilled at catching fish, that puts more and more and more pressure on the fisheries in terms of sustainability and the prime breeding stock that gets taken out of the lake every year. So that's one area that we've identified. The next one is sort of unusual, and that is the spotted bass haters. And I have seen this in my own fishing, guys. There's a large group of people out there that's almost like they don't see Kentuckies or spotted bass as a bass. They see it as like a crappie or something that there's just too many of. And they think, well, if I catch some spotted bass, I'm going to keep them and eat them. Guys, this is another myth in fishing out there. And I can tell you from a couple of my buddies that fish Lake Lanier and me fishing here in the Ozarks area, 20 years ago, guys, Table Rock Lake and Bull Shoals Lake and some of these lakes in the Ozarks, they were chock full of big old fat Kentuckies, big old fat 2 3/4, 3-pound Kentuckies. Guys, they're not there anymore. The numbers of those big Kentuckies are gone. And a lot of it is because I think people have got this mentality, and maybe some of the game managers encourage people to keep spotted bass because they see them as an invasive species. And what has happened as a result of that is the quality of the spotted bass fishing has tremendously went downhill, and it has also affected the other populations. I have not seen any type of explosion or increase in the quality of the largemouth or smallmouth fisheries here in the Ozarks as a result of people having this attitude that spotted bass are like crappie and you just want to keep them when you catch them. That is another myth that's hurting our fisheries. And we talked to that with a couple other people. Okay, the third group we talked about, and this is sort of one I don't know if a lot of people realize, is a lot of the immigrants. Now, I'm not getting into this topic to, place judgment on this. I'm just talking in terms of the obvious on there. But one of the things about it is there's a lot of legal and illegal immigrants in this country that put a tremendous amount of pressure on our fisheries in terms of keeping over their limit and under their limit. I have witnessed myself, especially like floating streams. You'll be floating streams and there'll be a group of, immigrants that you can tell they're immigrants, and they'll have, double their limit of 8-inch smallmouth bass on a stringer. And I've talked to conservation officers about this, and they see this as a widespread problem, but they can't really do anything about it because a lot of these people, they're fishing at night. A lot of them, it's like if they give them a ticket, they don't ever pay it, or they don't ever see them again out there. They're hard to find them. So this is another issue that I've talked with my buddies before about them seeing that over and over again, especially the immigrants that keep they'll have 30 bass on a stringer, and none of them are even legal links. And I think a lot of this is due to a couple different factors. Number one, being an immigrant, they may not know the laws. They come from a culture, a lot of them, that the whole idea of catch and release doesn't exist in their mind. They see they see fish as a sustenance and a resource. And maybe a lot of them don't have a lot of money and they feel they've got to supplement their food like that. But whatever the reason is, this is something that exists a lot out there that doesn't get talked about. And not necessarily that they're putting pressure, a lot of these people fish off the bank, and it's not necessarily they're putting pressure on, all the fish all over the lake, but in certain areas, they're keeping a lot of undersized bass and over their limit. So when that adds up over time, that's definitely going to have an impact as well. And then there's actually two other groups out there. There's another group out there the final two groups are the people that keep anything they catch. Like, there are simply just meat hunters out there that, like, if they catch a flathead catfish, it's going in the live well. If they catch a largemouth, a 7-pound largemouth, it's going in the live well. If they catch a crappie, they're going to eat it. They see fish as nothing but food, and it doesn't matter if a bass is a 15-inch keeper or a 15-pounder. They're going to put a knife to it, and there's a group out there like that. And finally, guys, the live scopers. Now, make no mistake about this, because I can tell you from my own experience talking with him and a bunch of my buddies out there, there are a ton of people out there that have adopted live scope as a means to keep and catch bass out there. I have talked to 5 different people this year that were filleting bass on different docks down at Table Rock Lake. And anytime I see somebody filleting bass out, I usually go over and strike up a conversation with them, because I sort of want to understand where they're coming from a little bit. And every one of these people I talked to, they live scoped their limits, and they were saying this, like, ever since this live scope came out, he goes, I can go out and catch my limit of bass any day that I want to. And mixed spotted bass, largemouth, they don't care. As the technology increases and the number of people out there that utilize the technology, that have this mentality of keeping and eating bass, that puts a more and more severe strain on the sustainability of our fisheries than ever before. Because, guys, bass are not an infinite resource on these lakes. A lot of people think just because you have a 30 or 40,000 acre lake out there that you can't fish it out. You can fish it out, especially since the bass that were protected for decades, are now being taken by the live scopers. So when you take a combination of the meat-eating live scopers, the pressure from the immigrants, the pressure from the groups out there that have this sense of entitlement that they're going to do it because the law says they can keep 5 bass a day, and by God, if they go out and catch 5 bass every single day for 365 days a year, just because they bought a $15 resident license, they're going to do that. When you've got this entire group of meat-eating mentality of bass anglers converging on lakes all at one time, that is going to have a significant amount of pressure on the lake. Now, it's sort of a dilemma, because the problem you have here is dry throat real quick. The problem you have here is not everybody is a tournament angler, but you don't have to be a tournament angler to support catch and release, because one of the things that we have to do is we have to have this paradigm shift where how we view bass fishing is not just meant what's here for me. I want to catch my limit. I paid all this money. I'm going to keep the bass if I want to, because it's my right. The law says I can keep 5 fish a day, so I'm going to do it. That is a self-centered position. We have to start thinking about, okay, what are we going to hand off to the next generation? It's like, if we don't responsibly take care of these fisheries, and in terms of taking fish out or not taking fish out, if we don't responsibly do that, we are not going to hand our lakes off to the next generation better than they were, because they're already not, guys. Our lakes suck right now compared to the way they were, 15 or 20 years ago. And don't get sucked in because you see these tournaments with guys catching 150 pounds of fish for 2 days live scoping out there. Don't feel that that is indicative of the population of bass that's in the lake, because it's not. The only way that you can have a true measure of the fishing on a lake is to take an average angler out there using average bass fishing techniques like crankbaits, spinnerbaits, topwaters, going out fishing, and then you get an accurate depiction of the overall legitimate health of the lake. It's not all those fish that are out there roaming in open water. So the point is, what do we do with that? And one thing before we do this, tournament anglers aren't not to blame too. As far as you're talking about just fish dying, there's more and more fish dying from tournament mortality than ever before, especially since a lot of these fish that are being caught deep with live scope, they suffer barotrauma issues, or eye damage or internal organ damage from getting pulled up out of deep water. Tournament anglers kill a ton of fish, not intentionally, but they still kill these fish through delayed mortality of the tournaments, all combined with the people that intentionally keep and eat the fish. So the point of the whole video, guys, is if we're in a unique position here. Bass fishing is a genre that is not like any other species out there. The pressure on bass fishing is relentless, and we cannot maintain any type of level of quality fishing in the long term. I'm talking over the next 50 years down the road. Most people don't look that far down the road unless we make some difficult decisions here with what we're going to do with it. And ultimately, it's up to two different things. It's up to every individual person to do the right thing, and it's up to the state fisheries managements to do the right thing. You can't count on people to do the right thing a lot of times if they see it as their right and they've got this culture of keeping fish, because they don't see anything wrong with it, and they take offense to anybody that says there's anything wrong with it. But then again, that may be true in the past, but it's not true now in the reality that we find ourselves in with the fishing pressure. So ultimately, the only thing that's going to save us on this deal is the fisheries managements and the conservation departments have got to wake up, and they've got to see the reality of the situation, and they have to take steps to, fix it and protect this. And that comes, one of the things that we need more funding. We need more funding, for those groups out there so they can have more conservation agents on the water. They can have just more, staff that's enables to do that. And right now it's like they just don't have that. And one final thing that I'll say again about the conservation agents is you hear all these, I hear them justify this, saying that, we've done studies and, nothing's being affected. Guys, the studies they do, what they're calling scientific studies, is they go to the boat ramp and they sit there, and there'll be Billy Joe Jim Fred come off the lake, with a 6-pack of Bud Light, and they ask him at the boat ramp how many bass they caught that day. You can't believe that. That is not a scientific study. There's no legitimate, all you're doing is taking somebody's word for that. And then again, the shocking studies that they do, that is extremely limited in scope. So they don't have any type of a real actual depiction on the quality of the fishing on a lake, other than the people that are out there all the time that can tell you what the fishing quality is in relationship to the past. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, from fishing around here in this part of the country for 50 years, and my buddies and everybody, all you guys that comment, there's a big mutual consensus here that fishing sucks right now compared to what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. It does. And it's like a mutual consensus. It's a reality that cannot be denied with that. And I think that right now we live in such a short-sighted world in terms of conservation of the bass fishers out there that we're going to wind up getting ourselves in a huge amount of problem. And when you talk about the issues that I just brought up here today, and then you add, water quality issues, pollution issues to it, all this type of stuff. The whole point of this video, guys, is just if we want to have a sustainable fisheries, I don't just mean sustainable, I mean quality, vibrant fisheries to hand off to the next generation, we got to start doing a better job, because we are failing big time right now. And it just, like I said, it's going to take a paradigm shift in the way the conservation departments, promote and advertise fishing. They need to start encouraging catch and release more. They need to start encouraging habitat management and habitat, programs and lakes out there. And it's just going to make it better for everybody all the way around. So anyway, guys, a little bit of a touchy topic here. Shoot me your opinions. Let me know what you guys think, and we'll check in later. See you.